All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Rocky Top Insider Instant Reaction Show. This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler, here to talk about Tennessee's Week 4 victory over UTSA by a score of 45-14. Ryan, this was a game in which Tennessee got off to a hot start. It was really, in a lot of ways, everything that they wanted to do coming after a loss. It was everything that people wanted to see coming after a loss. But then things hit a little bit of a lull there in the third quarter. Really just 14 points scored by both sides in the second half. Let's kind of break things from a big standpoint. What are your overall thoughts of just how the game shook out today? Maybe a little bit of tale of two halves.
Yeah, certainly. I think Tennessee coming out with the urgency that you would expect after a loss, and obviously couldn't have got off to any better start. 81-yard touchdown run for Joe Milton on the first play from scrimmage, 3 and out. Obviously, I think the Cam Seldon special teams mistake was really about the only thing Tennessee didn't do well in that first quarter. So that was the positive. And the negative, like you said, the lull in the second half. I think we've seen a lot of the same issues, or at least the limitations with Joe Milton showed up again in how Tennessee played and the consistency that they kind of lacked on the offensive side of the ball. But overall, a good response. Tennessee gets back in the win column. Defense was really dominant in the first half. That'll probably get a little bit overlooked in this one. But certainly Tennessee takes care of business, does what they need to do heading into a big one next week against South Carolina.
You know, Ryan, I thought one of the big talking points coming out of this game, one of the big things that I was looking at throughout the game, and I know you were too, I know everybody was, the return of Dylan Sampson to the field. We know that he wasn't used a lot last week against Florida. Josh Heupel said on Monday that just kind of the, quote, flow of the game switched things up. But boy, did he get in today, and man, he did a lot with his touches. Look at this, 139 yards gained on the ground. It looks like 11 rushing attempts. Also added in a reception for 20 yards there. So an unbelievable bounce-back game for Dylan Sampson.
Oh, yeah, certainly. And you saw the big play ability that he has in a long touchdown run. You mentioned the 20-yard was kind of not a shovel option, kind of a shovel screen pass to him on third down. And it really came in, not that Tennessee was going to lose the game, but in the big moment. It was their first touchdown drive in the second half when they were kind of reeling at that point. So he made a ton of big plays. He looks really good. And it just kind of continues. Tennessee's in, I don't know if an awkward spot's the right word, but what did they do running back-wise? Jalen Wright and Dylan Sampson look like two of the best playmakers on the offense. Obviously, Jabari Small is super steady, has been good for him for multiple years, does a lot of those little things well that doesn't show up on the box score. So that'll continue to be interesting to see how they utilize all three of those guys. Jalen Wright got a little banged up at I believe the end of the first half, maybe early second half. Didn't come back in. That made it easier for them to get, a lot of guys involved today.
Absolutely, it did. And again, those guys made the most out of their touches. You can just tell that whole running back room is dynamic. Maybe a happy problem to have, right, when you have three guys who can compete for touches. But obviously, Tennessee will be kind of focusing in on that as the season goes along. Let's talk about the quarterback a little bit. Joe Milton. Looks like right here, 18-31, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. Also had the massive 81-yard touchdown run here to start the game right here on this sideline. What did you think of just his overall performance and where things go next for the Tennessee starting quarterback?
I thought he was overall pretty solid. Obviously, there was a lack of continuity early in the second half. He missed a couple deep balls. UTSA guy, you kind of feel like Tennessee's run so many of these receiver or running back quick little screens. UTSA guy, it felt like someone was finally going to do it. UTSA defender jumps through, almost had a pick six, drops it. But the Joe Milton thing was a lot like it's been. Some good throws, some inconsistency, but to me, just the thing that stands out the most, there doesn't seem to be a ton of trust from Josh Heupel in Joe Milton's ability in the intermediate passing game. Even today, he jumps off to a great start before kind of sputtering. Beautiful deep ball to Ramel Keaton, couple RPOs about 5 yards down the field. But the vast majority of that stuff was quick RPOs, screen passes, not a ton of, all right, Joe, read the defense, get to your third, fourth read, make the plays in the intermediate. That continues to be, to me, a glaring issue, or glaring at least lack of offense answer Tennessee has at this point. And it's going to get more and more interesting. I'm not sure how much success you can have offensively without throwing the ball in the intermediate much.
Tennessee had about 200 more yards of total offense. UTSA finishes the day with just 319 yards total offense. Boy, they made that quarterback switch at halftime. They went to Owen McCown, son of former NFL veteran Josh McCown. He really had a little bit more pop to the offense than they did with Eddie Lee Marburger.
Yeah, I think in the first half, UTSA had 4 total first downs, and then they converted 4 third downs on their first drive in the second half, which was a 15-play touchdown drive. And you're right, I think just with the whole game as a whole, Tennessee's defense a little lackadaisical coming out in the second half, but overall it was a really good performance from Tennessee's defense. They were dominant in the first half. We just said it, UTSA had 4 first downs. Obviously one of those was after the Cam Seldon miscue on special teams, put him back on the field. But I think UTSA had 9 drives in the first half. Now, one of them was them just taking a knee to run out the clock. I think there were 4 3-and-outs. There was 2 turnovers on down and an interception. UTSA only crossed midfield 1 time. So a really good day for Tennessee's defense. 3 total turnovers as well. That is one of my keys to the game. Tennessee needing to force more turnovers. They haven't done that the first 3 weeks. They get 2 interceptions and a forced fumble today.
South Carolina comes in next. What's next for Tennessee?
A huge game, a circle the wagons game before the bye week for the Vols. South Carolina playing Mississippi State right now. It's going to be a big game for both teams. Neither team's gotten off to quite the start they envisioned. Harder first month of the schedule for South Carolina than Tennessee, but it's going to get hard for the Vols after the bye week they have after South Carolina. Huge game. South Carolina, Spencer Rattlers looked really good this year. Certainly Tennessee's pass defense has not been a strength really the whole Josh Heupel era, so they're going to be tested. I think they need to be more consistent, need to be better offensively, and it's going to be a huge game, and I think really no matter what happens in that South Carolina game next week, it's going to be a turning point for Tennessee's season.
One more question before we kind of get some final thoughts and we head out of here, and Ryan, this was not even a question I guess I was kind of maybe planning on asking it to you in a different direction, maybe if things transpired differently. Look, a lot of the fans want to talk about Nico Iamaleava right now. He did get a little bit of run in the fourth quarter. I believe, 2 drives?
2 drives.
2 drives at the end of the game. Just kind of what did you think of that? Obviously, I think a lot of the people even watching this video right now wanted to know and wanted to see a little bit more of Nico Iamaleava. Just what are your thoughts on that situation, kind of how that transpired and what's next for him?
Yeah, that's maybe one of the more frustrating things about the bad third quarter for Tennessee. You get up 31-0. Midway through the second quarter, it's like, all right, Nico's going to get a ton of playing time. Instead, he gets 2 drives. They go 3-and-out twice. One of them was a run sack, and should have been a face mask on the sack. So
it should have.
Hard to tell a ton about Nico and what the future holds. I don't know. If Tennessee wins next week against South Carolina, I have a hard time thinking Joe Milton's not going to be Tennessee's quarterback for a while. Tennessee loses, Joe Milton doesn't play great. It's a bye week at a critical time in the season where Tennessee could potentially make a change. But we'll see. That'll be a conversation for another day. And certainly good for Nico Iamaleava to get out on the field, to get some run, to get some action. Just not as much action as Tennessee would have hoped. And it looked like Tennessee was going to be able to get him in the first half.
Yeah, it really did. Things obviously went a little bit of a different direction. All right, Ryan. So again, Tennessee wins this game 45-14. Any other kind of final wrap-up thoughts that we might have missed about this game? Think we hit it all?
I guess I'll say special teams, real mixed bag. Cam Seldon had the bad play. Josh Tuberville's continued to be really good with touchbacks, just kicking it through the back of the end zone. I thought, again, Jackson Ross seems to get a little bit better and better every game. Obviously a low-pressure game, but a guy that was a big storyline the first few weeks of the season was good tonight.
From a simple, I'm a fan of football, I'm a fan of the sport of football, I think I turned to you in the middle of the game and I just said that ambidextrous punting just fascinates me to no end. And you made a great point, right? You can really kind of tell which one's coming based on the positioning in the field, but just the sole fact that he can do it with both, he can launch with both, fascinating to me. Very fascinating. Better
kicks with the right foot today. Going into this game, it felt like he was definitely better with the left foot. Had a number of good kicks, and again, that was, I would probably say, the biggest positive on Tennessee special teams. I guess they did snuff out the fake punt. The negatives, D. Williams, couple kick returns that didn't get out the 25, a holding call in one of them, and obviously, as we've mentioned a few times, Cam Seldon's mistake on the block kick.
By the way, speaking of that fake punt, go ahead and check out Rocky Top Insider socials because we're going to have a little bit of a clip of what Dylan Sampson had to say about that fake punt. He kind of walked us through it, what was going on during his mind, and it was incredibly entertaining to listen to. It was very funny. I won't spoil any of it, but go ahead and check out the Rocky Top Insider socials for that. Ryan, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. We're going to go back up to the press box. We're going to record a podcast with Jack Foster. So we'll continue to break down our thoughts on this game, talk about some of our thoughts heading into next week. We will do all of that, but make sure that you are staying locked into Rocky Top Insider on all different social media platforms if that's what you want to hear and see. We are at Rocky Top Insider on all different social media platforms, and you can go and find all of our work at www.rockytopinsider.com. Otherwise, we're going to head back to work. For Ryan Shumpert, I'm Rick Butler. Thanks for listening to the Rocky Top Insider postgame show.